Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. Hi friends, I've got a very, very juicy interview for you today with my friend Rebecca, sharing all about her spiritual and psychic awakening story. This is the same Rebecca who is featured in the multidimensional starseed episode. I think it was called like a starseed in multiple dimensions. And we met through the podcast. She was one of the people that reached out to me and booked a reading, and the stuff we found in her reading was like blew my mind over and over and over. So I'm really excited to have her on here to share her story, and it's such a good conversation. I just want to give you a heads up that due to internets, the call drops off on Rebecca's end for a couple seconds every now and then. Like I think it does it like half a dozen times. And it's annoying, and I'm sorry. I don't feel like it's worth editing those out because otherwise it would just, like the drop off gives it context to understand why you're missing a little snippet of information. That's my executive decision. I'm going with it. But it was just way too good of a conversation to re-record. I wasn't willing to scrap it just because of that annoying technological feature. But I wanted to let you know so that you don't think the issue is on your end. It's just a feature of the interview. I think you'll find that it super makes up for it in the goodness of the information. Rebecca shares at the end of the interview about her recent experiences with Cambo and Bufo frog medicine, and it was super exciting for me to hear about. I'm sure you will feel excited about it too. And just before we start, I want to tell you about my program Into the Akasha, which is starting on September 17th. Woohoo! I know that's very soon, and this is my first time telling you about it because I'm the worst marketer ever, but you can join late. It's not a big deal. It's a live program, which means that we have a module every week, and it gets recorded live for anyone who can attend live, but it also gets recorded and posted up. The video gets posted up in the group as a replay for anyone who either wants to watch it again or just needs to catch the replay. So it's fine. If you want to join and it's already past the 17th, no big whoop. This program is to teach you everything that I know and that I've learned about accessing the Akashic field and reading the Akashic records for yourself. And also in this round, I've included a new module about reading the Akashic records for others. And it's super consciousness expanding information, all channeled directly from source. Blew my mind as I received it. So I'm really excited to be sharing it again for round 2. The investment is $222. There are extended payment plans available, and they are generous in terms of like making it accessible for anybody who has a tight budget but really wants to do this. And I feel like it's a great value because you get access to all this content for life. You can rewatch it as many times as you want. So if this is calling to you, then click the link that I included in the show notes. Or if you have questions, or if you just prefer, you can reach out to me through my Instagram DMs or Facebook Messenger. To which, follow me on Instagram, or at least check me out. Find me on Instagram at thenorthstar.love, and find me on Facebook as Amy Melissa. But my Amy Melissa, like my regular real life profiles, like boring. Definitely come visit me in Soul Space. That's where things are happening. So yeah, that's it. Without any further ado, here is the awesome interview with Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you so much for being here and being willing to share your spiritual and psychic awakening stories with us.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so the first question I want to start with is what what does spiritual and psychic awakening or spiritual awakening like? What does it mean to you? How do you interpret it?
So, spiritual awakening to me is more in the consciousness field. I feel like when you realize that you're not just a human being living a human being experience, that it's just so much more than that. And the way that some people get to it is, I think, through either really great things in their life or really not so great things in their life. But at the end of the day, you find out that you're a spiritual being. So that's a win-win.
Yeah, totally. Like you find out that like, oh hey, there's I'm not just this thing, so the things that hurt me aren't as bad as they seem
Exactly.
when I think I'm only a human living this one life.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, and then I also want to ask you, before I get you to tell me your whole story, basically your entire life story, is what do you consider to be like your magic power or magic powers?
So my magic powers, I guess, would be claircognizant, where I just kind of know things and get downloads randomly. Like I could be driving somewhere and all of a sudden, bam, something will come into my head that puts two and two together, and I'm like, oh, why didn't I think of this before? Or, oh, where did that come from? And just knowing things that just seem kind of bizarre in the sense that I'm getting them, but then make total sense. So that
Yeah,
would be my superpower.
awesome. Cool. Yeah, I'm the same way. When I drive, I get so many downloads. It's wild. It's frustrating because then I can't like do anything with them. So
Mm-hmm.
like they just come and I'm like, I'm literally driving a motor vehicle. Like I can't even stop to write it down. Sometimes I'll record it on my voice memo, but
That's what I usually do. I usually pull out my voice memo and I just start talking. And then it seems the more that I talk to myself
yeah.
about something, the more stuff flows in. And I'm just like, oh, wow, where does this all coming from?
Yeah, it's amazing, eh? Like once you open up the channel and you let it move,
Mhm.
it's just like more and more starts coming through.
Exactly.
Okay, so I would love to hear basically like a somewhat linear-ish rendition of your spiritual and psychic awakening story. Like, when you were a little kid, did you have any sort of like gifts or abilities, or did those come in later? And like what happened, how, and all the things.
Okay. So when I was little, I used to always tell my parents that I was a witch. And I was like, I am a witch. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And they were like, okay, Rebecca, sure you are, whatever. Like, they weren't like, no, you're not. But they weren't like, you are. So that kind of like had its little phase and whatnot. And I can always remember lucid dreaming from a young age and thinking that that was just totally normal and something that everyone did, which now that I'm older, I know that it's totally not. Um, and I also used to always say that I could speak to animals, which I do remember having some of my friends over one time, and we opened up my window and started howling at the other dogs in the neighborhood, and then they started howling back, and I was like, see, I can talk to them. But other than that, I never really saw anything crazy or felt like I was being haunted by anything. I had a pretty normal childhood in that sense. My intuition was just always great, and I always just thought that was what it was, just straight intuition. And then my life I kind of suppressed everything, had a normal-ish life. I was diagnosed with endometriosis when I was 18, and with that started doing a little bit of holistic healthcare to kind of balance all that stuff out. And I think if I like dove completely into all this stuff, then it might have started my awakening a little bit earlier. But at that point, I was in college. I didn't really think too much about it. And I was just like, oh, I have this. I'm going to have surgeries, blah, blah, blah. So fast forward to 2017, and that's when the big spiritual awakening happened. And for myself, like some others, it was not the best stuff that brought about the awakening, which also I look back now and I'm grateful for all the things that have put me onto the path that I am on right now. So I can't even be kind of upset about what happened. Yeah. But long story short, I was in a not so healthy relationship. My boyfriend, fiance at the time, had a drug problem. I came home and I thought he overdosed in my bed and started having some PTSD, anxiety, depression, and stuff. And when I would go into these spells, I would kind of be able to take a step back in certain times and be like, that's not really how I feel. This is how I feel. So who is that feels that way? Like, it was almost like I split in half in those few seconds. And I was like, where did this, like, what is this? But I kind of just let it go. And then a few months after that, my mom dropped the bombshell on me that I was an IVF baby. And my life kind of like flipped upside down. And I was like, oh my God, everything that I've been told in life is not like how it really seems like. So what is life? And it was just one thing after another where it was like everything just started not crumbling, but kind of crumbling around me to where reality wasn't what it seemed anymore. So I remember waking up after my third surgery a couple months after that, and I sat up one day and was like, this can't be all that life is. Like, there's got to be more to this. And at the time I was doing yoga, and I really got into the conscious part of the yoga practices, not just the stretching. And I was like, oh, what is this all about? So went down that road a little bit, and then I started getting into the consciousness stuff and realizing that we are eternal spiritual beings just having a human existence. And the book that really set me on the spiritual awakening path, knowing what it actually was and having a name for it, was Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And that book completely changed the way that I looked at life and perspective and everything. And he himself also went through a dark time, and that's what got him to realize that there was more to life and to kind of see himself as different from just the sad, depressed little human person, as the person watching that and deciding that he doesn't have to be that. So I got really into his stuff and listened to a bunch of his books on Audible. And I knew at that point that I was an empath. And I thought that made a lot of sense because I was very sensitive and absorbed a lot of energy. So I learned different tricks with shielding and protecting my energy. And then went back to the toxic relationship like a lot of empaths do, because love and all that stuff, and was still in the spiritual consciousness state, but was kind of slipping in and out of it because my energy wasn't fully consumed and invested in myself. It was being pulled in 50 million different directions. So finally, when I got out of that, at the beginning of this year, 2020, all of a sudden I was getting downloads nonstop. I was having onto me, and it was just like one thing after another, and I was like, what is going on? So I went to a couple different mediums and tried to figure out what was going on, and they gave me some tips and hints and things to do. I ended up closing my mediumship door, and after I did that, then a bunch of other downloads came in, and a bunch of my clairs started to come in because my energy was fully focused on X instead of XYZ and the rest of the alphabet. And that's where I am today.
Cool. It's amazing how like all it really takes is just, a couple occurrences in, one's life to make one think like there's got to be something more than this. And just the asking of that question has the potential to like open up so much. But how crazy you feel when you're first, like, even as you were describing the point where you kind of split back from yourself and was like, well, I don't really feel that way about this, like I feel this way, so who's that feeling that way? And just like understanding yourself more clearly, or kind of like in that, like that brief reflection period, and how like kind of weird and crazy that can make you feel. And
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it made you feel that way, but I
Oh
know
no.
that stuff used to make me feel, and if I tried to talk to people about it, I felt like a fucking lunatic. Like even just
Oh
trying to find the words to describe it. And then it just gets so much more intense from there.
Oh yeah, like even last night I was talking to a friend about it because I pull tarot cards and oracle cards for friends, and she was like, "How did you get into this?" So I kind of gave her the same little spiel that I just gave, and she just kind of sat there nut house, and they would be like loading me up with drugs. But I'm so grateful that it's happening in this lifetime at this time, because I feel like so many other people are awakening as well. And the thing that I find the most crazy is 2012, you have 100, not 100, but a lot of people waking up. 2017, you have a lot of people waking up. And 2020, you have a ton of people waking up. So it can't be just a coincidence that so many people around the world are coming to all these realizations. So there has to be something to it. We're not all crazy, or if we are, I like the crazy world that we live in.
Totally. Totally. So what is your theory as to why, I would love to hear your theory as to why so many people are waking up right now?
I don't think it's a occurrence that's happening throughout the world. I got really into Dolores Cannon books beginning of this year, and she talks a lot about the wave of star seeds coming in. And once I heard the word starseed, something like lit up in me, and I was like, oh, why does this sound familiar? I need to do some research on this stuff. And basically that the world is shifting from the 3D to the 5D consciousness and all of that banana stuff that goes along with it. So I think that, and especially with the astrology stuff, with going into the age stars or empaths or light workers or whatever anyone really wants to call themselves, are realizing that life doesn't have to be as hard and miserable and crazy as we've been told it has to be. So that's my theory on it.
That's an awesome theory. Yeah, my theory on it is it's very similar. Like I just think that this was like a sometimes when I'm doing readings for people, like I just did a reading today for somebody who had like a set up awakening period in her own life. And it manifested, in a physical way and whatever, but it was like meant to happen. Like her soul wanted to have the experience of being like really being human and having this like identity construct, and then to go through the process of like shedding all of that and waking up to, a more complete understanding of who she is. Like I can't even say like waking up to all that she really is, because I don't think our human minds can even conceive of it. But I think the same thing is happening, like that's happening on a micro individual level, and I think it's happening on a grander level. And like I also agree with that. Maybe that's where my understanding of it came from, because a couple years ago I read some Dolores Cannon stuff too. I feel like I had already heard about 5D, but then I found her stuff and just reading the little, like mini stories of people's like hypnosis sessions was like,
Mhm.
what the fuck? And then I had one of those myself and it was really cool. But I just feel like we have pre-planned this level of awakening right now, and it's coming in stages, like you said, in 2012. And like, of course, there were people before that, but they were much, it was much fewer people. And then 2012 was a big wake up point for people. And then 2016, 2017 was a big wake up point, and 2020, and it'll probably just continue. But I feel like it's all like petals of the same flower, like
Mhm.
opening up, and we're just like coming back into this realization of like that we're not nearly as small and herpy derpy and muggly as we thought
Exactly.
we are.
I think that it was a way to control the collective consciousness also, kind of like not beating us down that we're these rinky-dink human things. If we don't think that we have power, then of course we don't have power. But if we know that we do, then nothing can stop us, type of thing.
Oh, totally. It's amazing. It's amazing how much like our beliefs being manipulated really influence, our experience. Like if you I think if you took a child like right from the very start and just like told it couldn't see, even if
Mm-hmm.
it could, and like its eyes worked perfectly, but every time like, everybody collectively agreed to like invalidate every thing that the child was reporting as being able to see, the child would like first think they were totally crazy, and then would probably just eventually, because they just need to fit in, because
Yeah.
we're communal creatures, would just believe that they can't see, and then would probably stop seeing, would just probably stop receiving. And I totally think that's what happens with us. And there's like greater sort of macro perspectives of why that happens, or why this is happening. But either way, I'm super excited to be here for the wake up part. It's thrilling.
Oh, me too. Like, and I think the craziest part is the certain downloads that I've gotten about time and it not being linear, and that all of our consciousness is in this moment right now, but it's also in all of the other parallel realities that we live in, and also our quote unquote past lives, which are really other parallel realities, and then their parallel realities. And it's just consciousness just exploring consciousness throughout
Totally.
the world.
Yeah, well, it's just wild when you begin to think about it. Like our brains can't there's a point where even though I understand all that, there is a point where my brain is like, bah, bah, like it starts
Yep, yeah.
circling,
Oh,
like, how?
mine too. And if I try to like talk about it sometimes to people, even people that are on the spiritual path, they're kind of like, huh? What? And I'm like, no, what? Once you kind of get it, like words don't really make sense to describe it, but you just know it's bananas.
It is so bananas. And for sure, like words are totally inadequate tools to, like, I don't mean to like crap on language, because I know that there are some people that are like totally language people and they love the challenge of articulating seemingly inarticulatable things through
Mhm.
language, and they're brilliant and I'm thankful for them. But I find them always so like clumsy and limited. And like, how do you, like, I'm like grappling like during readings or when I get downloads, or pretty much anytime I'm having a conversation with anybody these days, I like trying to take a concept that doesn't actually fit words and fit it into words. And it makes me feel like I have this like strong sense that we are actually telepathic. Like we totally have telepathic abilities, but
Oh,
those have just been so weakened over time because we were kind of talked out of it, and it was not anything that was fostered in
yeah.
most dominant cultures that I know of.
Yeah,
And
no. I totally resonate with that. Like, we think that we need the internet to find things or find out information about things instead of just tapping into our own energy consciousness field and knowing things. And I think that while people didn't believe that they could actually access certain information, so with certain things being handed to them, they were like, oh, well, this is how we're supposed to do it, not that way. So like you said, it just suppresses it down and down and down until it's barely functioning anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think it's so interesting though that we have these communication devices, like personal handheld, like it started with, you know, cell phones. Well, it started with phones, like ancient landline phones. And then, but you know, here we are now with cell phones, and most of us are with smartphones, and that we have like constant connection to the internet. And it's because I think the reason is like, it's almost like having your own legs atrophy, and so you're given like crutches or artificial legs or something to use instead. But it's like, actually though, we all have the ability to be in communication with each other consciously. We just have completely forgotten how to do it. And I think language kind of does that too, because animals, I mean, animals and humans are different for sure, but animals don't have language the same way that we do, but they totally communicate telepathically. And a lot of us can pick it up too. I'm sure you can, because you are such an animal person.
I look and exactly what they're thinking or exactly what they want. And it's really interesting when you start to think about all those different things and the different consciousnesses of the animals and plants and basically everything, that everything has some sort of consciousness that you could tap into and understand and communicate with. But most of us don't know how to do that or aren't taught how to. And
Don't even,
hopefully, as the world evolves spiritually and in the more feminine way, that we're able to tap into all that stuff way more.
yeah, I think that's where it's headed. That's my personal take, and it helps me to feel like I can cope with everything that's going on in the world. So I'm just going to keep believing it. I'm putting
Yeah.
energy into that timeline, manifesting. Um, so when you were going through like the challenging part of your spiritual awakening, um, like it was sort of the way you described it was the succession of things, like, you know, finding your partner in like you thinking he had OD'd, and then your mom being like, hey, guess what? You were an IVF baby. And then also being diagnosed with endometriosis. Is that right? Is that kind of or I
Yeah.
guess endometriosis came first.
Yeah. I think they were all just like ego blows and almost like my ego was kind of being shredded.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I saw myself in a certain way, I saw my life in a certain way, I had myself in a box, which a very unique box, because I've never been like a straightforward type of person. I've always kind of beaten to my own drum, but it was just such a blow to my ego, everything, that it really really made me take a step back and say, like, okay, who am I? Because I am that, but I'm also not that, if that makes any sense.
Totally. I love the way you put that. Like I think that totally is so much of awakening, is like having your ego construct, your identity construct, really, I don't know, sometimes it's shattered, sometimes it's just cracked, whatever, but it's just that sense of like, holy fuck, this is breakable. Like, but
Yeah.
I'm still here. Like, so what the hell? But so when you were going through that period and it was really challenging, like at the time, did you kind of know what that you were experiencing a spiritual awakening, or did you feel like completely like crazy, and like did you struggle with feeling like what's going wrong with my life?
I felt completely like a crazy person. Like, I literally thought that I should have been locked up at certain points because of the things that were going, not like bad things, like I wanted to hurt myself or anything like that, but things just like, I thought of myself almost personalities, but different aspects of me that were different than just one total package. If kind of like I said about my ego, like shredding, it was like, okay, this is me, but this is also me, but this is also me, but that's also me, but that's also not me. So it was, I felt like a crazy person. I even ended up getting off really fast because I didn't like the way that they made me feel. And I actually ended up getting my medical marijuana card. And before that, I had smoked cannabis and never really thought of it as like a practice or, you know, like medicine. And after getting the medical card, started treating it more like medicine, and then ended up realizing that it has its own consciousness. And then I felt even crazier because I was like, oh my God, I'm talking to a joint that I'm smoking now. Like, please, like, please do whatever's in the highest and best good for me. Like, who am I right now? But I think it's all just part of realizing like the consciousness in every single thing. And it sometimes still I'm like, am I like a crazy person when I say these things? But hell, like I said before, I can't be too crazy if all these other people are thinking the same things too.
Yeah, that's right. And like, really, I mean, without wanting to oversimplify and generalize indigenous cultures, but from what I've learned about them, in order to survive in harmony with the environment and to, like, you know, have a life that was not just pure survival either, but was like, you know, was also thriving and stuff, they had this innate sense that there is consciousness in everything, and they were in communication with that consciousness. And I feel like it's actually crazier that so many of us have been convinced otherwise, and that the world is just like devoid of any meaning or consciousness, and we are also meaningless, and that, like, you know,
oh yeah, like, okay,
no
yeah, do it all over again. Like, that can't be all life is.
yeah, exactly. And so when you mentioned the marijuana, is there anything else that you did when you were going through that period of time where it felt really hard and confusing, and like you actually didn't know if you were just crazy, or whatever? Like, did you have any other things that kind of helped you to get through that?
I started meditating a lot, and I started doing a lot of yoga. Um, at the time, I was going to different studios and doing flow classes, more where it's the different positions and feeling your body and really being in the moment type of things. And that helped me a lot with the anxiety that I was dealing with, because not only was I dealing with all of the craziness anxiety, I was also running a business, working for myself, running a horse farm, taking care of all these animals. And it got to a point where I was like so worried about the future that I wasn't living in the present moment.
Right.
So to learn how to be in the present moment with being in my body, or even just breath work. Even now, if I start to get anxious, I just take a deep breath and hold it in for 4 seconds and then blow it out for 4 seconds, and do that a couple times until I start feeling my energy field. And I'm like, all right, like, whatever it is that I'm worrying about, that doesn't matter. This moment right now is the only thing that matters and the only thing that I'm in control of. And learning how to do that really, again, changed my consciousness and my perspective on everything, because we live in a society where it's just go, go, was ever to really learn how to sit with myself and just be present. And I think that a lot of people weren't taught to do that. At least I know personally that a lot of people that I know weren't taught to do that. Even if I mention meditating, I could never just sit down, not even for like 5 minutes, and just shut everything off in my brain. And I think it's such a shame that so many of us are like hardwired that way from childhood. And it's not our parents' fault or anything like that, because everyone's just trying to do their best, and they were all taught a certain way also. But at the same time, I think it's kind of our responsibility now, if we do notice a way to change, to be vocal about it. Because if my story can help anyone else that's struggling with anything, I am all for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And even like I say this as somebody who has a 2-year-old and also is running her own business and feels like I never have the amount of time that I want. And so I don't devotedly meditate. Like I have a thing that I do every day, usually at night before bed, and I often am like drifting in and out of sleep while I do it. But I don't meditate a lot, but I know that it's so powerful and it's life-changing every time anybody does it. And I feel like having a committed meditation practice is like an ideal to strive for. If it's possible, it can completely change your life. But even if you can't find a lot of time, like I can't, like I know so many people are so busy, it's so worth it. And it's not really about having to quiet your brain. It's just remembering that like in any given moment, there's so much more information around us, swirling around us in the physical world and also in the energetic world to perceive. But because we're constantly running in that go, go, go pace, like you said, we don't notice it. Like we need to just like chill out so that we can, we can notice it. It's like tiny little things. It's always so subtle and quiet. But kids are so hardwired to be natural meditators, and we're actually trained out of it. That's my belief, because a kid is content to lie down and look at the clouds, or like lie down and examine, I don't know, really get focused on an anthill, or whatever thing. And even though their attention span is very short, they also time relative to the amount of time that they've been alive. So like a 1 minute for a 5-year-old is a completely different experience than 1 minute for a 55-year-old.
Oh yeah.
So even though like one might think like, oh, a kid, but they don't have any attention span, and kids don't naturally meditate. They do. It's just they just need to do it a lot, like for shorter periods. But it's such a natural thing for us to really like connect deeply with ourselves and with our environment, and just have those moments of like, not filled up space. Like just, it's not really empty space. It's just where we're not filling it up with some justification, which makes us worthy to be alive. And yeah, we're so trained out of it, but it's like the simplest, most free and accessible, like literally do it anywhere. I think activity or like choice to make to support ourselves through spiritual awakening.
Oh yeah. And don't feel bad. I've been so horrible at meditating the last couple months that when I say I'm going to meditate, I'm like, all right, I'm going to pencil in these 15 minutes. Else. So what I've been doing also is when I do notice that, I'll stop and I'll breathe for, or if I'm outside, and it's cliche, but if there are flowers, I'll literally go up to the flowers and smell them and like take the time to go up and like appreciate them and appreciate the moment. And then also the I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'll repeat that multiple times a day, and just totally surrender to just that, and put that in my total time that I'm saying it. And I feel like as long as you consciously choose to do something, even if it's for a minute, just that minute is so powerful.
It's so powerful, and it often compounds too, right? Like the more we do that, like or with more consistency or whatever, eventually it just kind of like turns into your baseline setting, and then it's just kind of normal, and you know, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't feel like such a big chore anymore to do that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. And at what point did you start to realize like, oh fuck, I'm just going through a spiritual awakening, and I'm actually like, when did the penny really drop and you're like, oh,
I
I'm a
think
multidimensional being?
I will be honest, not say it completely right, but he says like this book is a vibration, and if you're ready to receive the message, you will. If you're not ready to receive the message, you won't, and it won't make sense to you. And when he said that, I remember I was on my lawnmower mowing one of my fields, and I just got goosebumps all over, and I was like, what's happening right now? And then everything in that book, it was ding 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 ding, and I was just like, okay, so this is what's going on, so this is what it, and then from that it was just snowball effect on and on and on.
Yeah,
But I had no idea what to call it at first. I thought that I was just, I don't know, semi beings, but not beings, because it was still all me.
yeah. That's awesome. It's so interesting how like it's, you stop feeling like, or predominantly anyway, stop feeling crazy too once you like find that validation, like whether it's through a book or somebody else or a movie or whatever, but like when you find that and you're like, oh, like it then you can just lean into it so much more and not fight it so much, and it actually becomes really exciting. I
Oh,
think anyways.
oh no, I do too. I remember, and with his stuff too, it's all about realizing that you are not your ego, that your ego is part of you, but it's not who you are. And I remember I was out at lunch actually with my mom one day, and she was talking about something, and she was like, oh, why don't you go on a date with this guy? It would be a really good ego boost. And I just looked at her and I was like, I don't need an ego boost. I'm not my ego. And she just looked at me and she was like, what? Like she totally had no idea where that came from. And I was like, I'm not my ego. I don't need an ego boost. Like I'm like I'm happy. And it just, I remember her looking at me, and she then started to shift her own consciousness a little bit, and she was just like, oh, okay, so ego boost, the world's about. Like it was so funny.
That's amazing. I fucking love hearing about that stuff and like the little ripple effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that stuff is kind of like, because really it's only been in the last year or so that I pushed myself to be like, to talk about these things even openly with people in the public, even though this is like literally all I ever think about. But I
Well,
always kept it quiet. But then I would think to myself, like, it's so important though, because you like, I would take inventory of the people that have made an impact on me. And some of them are like, they don't even know that I exist. They don't even know that I saw them. But like just those little things that land at the right time, and it like starts to open you up. And it's so liberating to go through a spiritual awakening and open up and be like, oh yeah, I'm not my ego. What an
yeah,
amazing liberating concept.
yeah, it's such a beautiful thing too, to be able to feel free from that. Like you don't have to be what everyone expects you to be. You can kind of just be who you want to be.
Oh, completely. I think that's one of the biggest like sort of shifts that at least in North America that so many people are going through. I can't say about the rest of the world because I'm in North America, but I feel like so many people are sort of straddling that pull between kind of like, you know, the Disney movie Moana. Have you seen that movie?
I haven't. So
Okay, well, I won't use it as an analogy, but I watch it a lot right now because I have a 2-year-old daughter. But
I've heard it's really good though.
it was really good. Moana is drawn to the sea. She's the daughter of the chief. And he like keeps, reminding her like, no, like you're supposed to be here on the island. Your people need you. You have this role. It's a happy life. Everything's really beautiful. But she's like, but I keep like wanting to go to the sea. And I feel like people have that struggle, at least in North America, where other people impose their ideas on us of who we're supposed to be.
Oh yeah.
And because we want so much to be accepted and loved, like it's so hardwired into our survival programming that most of us really try to mold ourselves to fit that, or fit somebody else's ideas of what makes us acceptable and worthy and like, good and all that stuff. But that actually, like, we're so much so much more than that, and we can be loved for who we really are too. But it's like, yeah, exactly like you said, like that release feeling of being like, wow, I'm liberated from feeling like I have to show up as who you think I am. I can just show up as myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Awesome thing.
Okay, so let's see. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that I haven't asked you about?
Well, I'll go into a little bit of what I'm exploring now.
Yeah.
So the way that my guides and my higher self and all that fun stuff kind of teach me and mold me into the path that I should be going on is by like dropping little hints of things here and there. And right now I am big into plant and animal medicine. And I actually just did this past weekend a bufo ceremony, which are both frog medicines, and they are from indigenous, I believe it is Amazonian frogs. And
Can you say those again, Rebecca?
yeah, so it's combo and then bufo. So KAMBO and BU. I feel like with certain medicines, at least the way that they happen to me, is the medicine calls you when you're ready for it, or
Absolutely.
when it's ready to do something for your life and benefit you, and kind of makes its way in your life. Like, what this stuff would pop up into little old my life in, Ocala, Florida, like not in the Amazon or anything like that. And it's just the ceremonies with shamans I'm so interested in, and it's just mind-blowing stuff right now. And so that's what I am kind of focusing my energy on right now, and what I'm being guided to more, and the different consciousnesses in all of that stuff, which I'm sure if some people hear, oh, plant medicine or animal medicine, oh, you're just doing it for the hallucinogenic effects or to get high or something like that. But it's totally different. And I think that it's such a shame that it's looked at that sometimes from certain perspectives, because so many people have abused the medicine, and that the more shamanic ways are coming back into practice, I think is just so beautiful.
I think that's so beautiful too, that like like you were saying before, when you were like, am I talking to a joint? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's when you like honor something as having a consciousness, and like also being consciousness, right? Like, so the consciousness signature of a particular plant or animal is unique. I mean, most people can feel that. If you feel into a wolf versus a turtle, their energy feels totally different, right? So it's just acknowledging that there's a consciousness there, and that the consciousness carries its own like wisdom and that it is sharing it with you and you are receiving that gift. And that just turns it into something like so elevating and expansive rather than, you know, just like recreational for shits and kicks. Although it
Yeah.
can still be like fun, but,
Oh yeah.
but
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
So I would love to hear, in the last few minutes, if you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit about the Cambo and the Bufo experiences and like what they kind of felt like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So the Cambo is the secretion from the, I believe it's the bull monkey frog. It's some sort of weird monkey frog from the Amazon, and no animals are hurt in the process, just so everyone knows. It's just the excretion of the venom on top of them. And what the shaman do are they burn what they call gateways into your skin. So the first time I did it, I got 3 marks. And then the second time I did it, I got 4 marks. And skin, which opens up the gateway. And it only lasts for about 20. And that medicine is not a hallucinogenic at all. It's a medicine to and my biggest thing with the medicine is just honoring it. So after every purge, I would say thank you. I honor the process with like vomit coming out of my mouth. Like it was not the most attractive thing, definitely, but to want to do that and to honor the medicine and to honor yourself, to want to get rid of all the toxins that have been lingering in your body is just so beautiful. So the first time I did it, my intention was just an overall body cleanse, like whatever the medicine needs to do, I honor you and work your magic. And the purge was intense, but it wasn't too bad. And then the second time that I did it, I targeted my sacral chakra, my ovaries, my uterus, all the stuff with my reproductive system to kind of tackle the endometriosis, which actually it's used for fertility help in the Amazon as well. I'm gonna do it again. Like, this is going to be my second intention, and I was able to do it with a woman shaman that time, and it was just, the purge was a lot more intense, I think, because I was intentionally hitting different spots and different things that I wanted to work.
Wow, that's awesome.
The name for it is 5-MeO-DMT, which, you know, we all have DMT in our pineal glands, and this is just a super intense, not even, I can't even call it a DMT trip, because I've smoked the crystal DMT before, which found its way to me, that medicine, and that was a very interesting, mind-blowing experience. And this one was like that on steroids. When I say there are no words to really describe what happens, like, there are just no words. But from what I can remember from it was, you kind of like blast off galactically, and I went through what it felt like different consciousnesses, and when I was in each of them, like, it felt so real, like, this is my life right now, this is who I am. And then it went to the next one, and I forgot about that old one. So
wow.
Yeah, and it was like multiple of them, and then at the end of it, it was just nothing, but it was everything at the same time. It was just energy, like, you just become everything but nothing, and it was just darkness. and then you come back, and this was also a 20 to 40 minute trip type of thing. And I remember coming back and everything is vibrating and like brilliant and beautiful colors. And it was so mind blowing. And I said to the shaman that I think I'm supposed to be here for a reason. Like I'm here for a reason. I have to stay for right now. And as soon as I said that, I was looking up at the sky. And at this point, I'm fully conscious, like back in this reality. And there was an ET ship hovering above me.
That's amazing.
Yep. And so, like, I have some ET ties with, like, my spirit guides and my consciousness and my soul. And, well, you know that because we've done readings before together.
Yeah.
But I've never consciously, like, in waking time, seen anything. And just seeing it up there, I was like, holy shit, like, they are there. And I'm here. And it was almost like a reminder of them saying, like, just do your work on earth. Like, we are here. Don't worry. And you're not alone. And it was one of the most intense, beautiful experiences. And I'm so grateful for the people that have led me to the certain shamans that did the medicine, and that the medicine even called me. Like, I feel so honored that it wanted to share itself with me.
Yeah.
And that's just the path that I'm on right now, and I'm loving every moment of it.
That's amazing. And I was thinking as you were describing like that intense journey of like totally going through like a thing and being like, this is who I am, and then moving to the next one and having like forgotten about the previous one. I was like, isn't that just an amazing sort of like micro version of what the soul goes through? Like every time we incarnate, we're like, this is what I am. And then like, we go on to the next one and we pretty much totally forget about that last one, but it doesn't mean we're not that. We're just all of it. And then at the end, we just kind of return to like everything, nothingness of amazing, indescribable vastness.
Exactly. And like, I've gotten some weird downloads that point me to the direction of thinking that there is a way to tap into all of the consciousnesses and to be able to pull from whatever consciousness, whatever lesson you learned in that lifetime. So I'm still trying to figure that part out 100%, but I feel like there's a way to do it somehow. And energy-wise, one day I will figure it out.
That's so friggin' cool. And I'm definitely going to be waiting on the edge of my seat for like no pressure or anything, but like definitely want to hear about it when it kind of synthesizes. I'm positive that it will. Even as you're saying that, I can feel that that's definitely part of your own magic and your gifts, is like being such a consciousness explorer and like figuring out ways to kind of like unique ways for people to do that. That are may or may not involve plant or animal medicine, but anyway.
Yeah. Oh, and you'll laugh at this part. When it was done and the shaman and I were talking afterwards about what to expect afterwards, he was like, now you might astral travel a little bit at night and you might feel yourself like come out of your body and all this stuff. And this will all like strengthen all that. And I was like, oh my God, Amy and I just did an Akashic reading. And that's what came up, that this was going to be what I was going to be really good at, astral traveling and all this stuff. And I'm like, yay.
That's amazing. Amazing. So that second one you were talking about, that was the Bufo one?
Yes. So that was the Bufo, and that's with the DMT in it.
Yeah. And the Campbell was the toxin purging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Maybe I don't know, I'm just thinking that some people will probably be interested in that. So if you feel comfortable and able, if there's anything you can share with me afterwards to put in the show notes, then I will do so. And if not, then people can just, the people who are invited to do it by the spirit of those beings will know it's for them.
Oh yeah. And if anyone has questions or anything like that, they can send me a message on either Instagram or Facebook.
Oh, awesome.
On both of those platforms, and I haven't shared the second Cambo and Buffo experience yet because I feel like I'm still integrating back into this reality from it, and the way to express it in the way that honors the medicine rather than being like, I went on this trip, like here's some pictures. So
Yeah.
eventually that story will be posted. So they can find me on Facebook at Rebecca Weiner, RebeccaWeiner, or on Instagram.
And I will put those in the show notes too.
Cool. But
Yay.
yeah, I'm totally open about talking about whatever. And I've always, even with my endometriosis, when I was diagnosed at 18, I started telling my story and different things that I did. And I know from certain people reaching out to me that had no idea what it was, and then having their own
I think it just dropped out again.
Oh, I can hear you.
Okay.
Now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, it occasionally does that, but the last two have been like long dropouts. Oh well, we got all the good stuff anyway.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being willing to do this. This was such an awesome conversation, and I feel like so many people are gonna resonate with it. Who are going through spiritual awakenings. I get lots of messages. It makes me very happy from the bottom of my heart and soul. I get a lot of messages from people who are like, I am going through something and I didn't realize this what it was, and like thank you for sharing other people's stories. So yeah.
That's so amazing. Yeah, and thank you for asking me. I'm so flattered that you wanted to know about.
Oh yeah, well, I feel like I resonate with you so much, and I think the experiences that you describe are so fascinating, and your perspective is so fascinating. So yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yay. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for being here and listening with us. And if you liked this episode and you want to help the podcast grow or help anybody who you think might resonate, then please share it. And if you really love us, then please take a screenshot of yourself listening to this episode and then post it on social media and tag Rebecca and I in it. It'll make our friggin' day. No kidding. It'll totally make our day. All right. Have a great one, everyone.
Bye.
How good was that interview? So good. I hope you enjoyed it. I also just wanted to take a really quick moment to thank everybody who reaches out and sends me a message to let me know that you're listening and that you're positively impacted by this podcast. I can't possibly tell you how much those messages mean to me and how happy they make me. I endeavor to respond to every single person who reaches out to me. Sometimes they end up in that weird secret spot of my Facebook DMs or my Instagram DMs, where if we're not, we haven't been in contact before, it kind of like hides in the request zone for a while. But I always endeavor to get back to you because I truly appreciate it so much. It's literally the fuel that keeps me going when I'm kind of in these sticky patches where I feel like I'm pressed for time. And it's the most rewarding thing ever. Truly. So thank you. Thank you. And I've got some other exciting things rolling out to sort of streamline this whole process and create an opportunity for further connection and interaction that I'm excited to tell you about, hopefully on the next episode. But until then, lots of love and take care. Thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. I appreciate you more than my words could ever say. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next episode.